How's it going, everybody? Thanks a ton for tuning in, and welcome to the first episode of the Have a Go Talk Show. I'm your host, Dylan Saucedo, and if you love rugby, you're in the right place. Like I mentioned before, I'll be dropping a new episode every Friday with coverage of the MLR, the Sevens, international tests, and hopefully even a bit of Super Rugby Pacific. I'll be connecting with players, coaches, referees, executives, other influencers, and even fans of the game, as well as giving you guys some power rankings, pre-weekend picks, match reviews, and a few hot takes on the game itself. To kick it off today, though, we'll chat a little bit about my journey as a rugby player and how I got into the media. Then we'll go into why this whole thing is actually starting. And then we'll break down the schedule this weekend, my first MLR power rankings, and Super Rugby power rankings going into round and week 9. We'll also go through the World Sevens Championship, which is coming to Los Angeles on May 3rd, and we'll actually see you guys down there. So we're very excited for that and to chat about that today. So let's get into it. My story. Just want to talk to you guys about that. Break down my mission and kind of how I got involved in this game, because I think it is very important to kind of put that out there, and kind of have a main goal, right? Somewhere where all this kind of stuff converges. And yeah, so we're gonna break that down today. Let's get into it here. Yeah, my name is Dylan Saucedo. I'm a second year scrum half up at the University of Utah, where I study business entrepreneurship, and I also help run the rugby club as club president. From Orangeville, California, which is just outside of Sacramento, and I've played rugby for 7 years. I started rugby at the age of 14 with Granite Bay Rugby Club, and these are the boys right there, NorCal champs. You see the GBR up there, so shout out to Granite Bay Rugby. In my first season, we took second at the state championships in 15s, and because we made that final, our coaches took us down to the Las Vegas Invitational Sevens. That tournament was held the day before the World Series down in Vegas when it was in Vegas. So great experience there. I fell in love with sevens and the culture that weekend, and me and my teammates got to experience a great rugby, and fans of the game that weekend at the Las Vegas tournament. And after that, I really never looked back. I stopped playing baseball after 10 years at the end of the next school year, and put all my time towards rugby and school. So during the COVID pandemic, I had the opportunity to attend a winter camp at ERA before my sophomore season, and that's when I kind of realized I wanted to play this game at a higher level. After a short 15 season in the spring of 2021, my sophomore year of high school, I reached out to the Rhinos Rugby Academy about getting a spot on their team at the NAI Sevens that coming summer. And for a lack of a better term, I was given probably the most impactful opportunity that I'll ever get, or ever have gotten so far. So three of my teammates and I traveled to my then future home of Salt Lake City. And at the end of July, we were coached by none other than USA Rugby and MLR legend Ryan Mattias. That weekend, I was named captain, and he taught me a few things, that I still think about to this day for sure. The best of those being have a go and back myself. And so big shout out to Coach Ryan Mattias. He's actually the head coach down there at San Diego State University right now. Big shout out to my guy. He was massive, and impacting me in the game. That weekend he was really just showing me the reins of what it was to be a high level rugby player. How you held yourself, how you were accountable, responsibility, all those kinds of things. And so being the captain that weekend, I felt that, and then took a lot of that stuff with me. Still look back on those notes from Coach Ryan today before matches. So really appreciate him. Big shout out to Coach Ryan Mattias for just being impactful in the game, and keep doing what you're doing, my man. Making a big difference for sure. So really appreciate Coach Ryan. And that's where the name came from. Have a Go Talk Show. Coach Ryan told me to have a go, and that was kind of the first piece of rugby lingo, I guess, that I grabbed. And yeah, I've taken that with me everywhere I've gone. I honestly I say that all the time now. And so it all started with Coach Ryan Mattias telling me to back myself and have a go at halftime that one time. So that's pretty much the start of my rugby journey. After that, getting into my junior year of high school, we were a real solid rugby club, Granite Bay Rugby, competitive place to play some ball. I mean, almost every guy that I graduated with is playing D1A rugby right now. Central Washington, Navy, St. Mary's, Cal, like these guys are starting and they're killing it. I've got to play against a couple of them as well, which has been super sick. And, getting that experience together and kind of seeing each other do our own things has been really cool. So, shout out my boys over at GBR. That year, a junior year, was tough to find a spot for me for sure. Had to keep working. I knew we were going to Ireland on our first international rugby tour. So when we went on that, it was probably the best experience that I've ever gotten in the game of rugby. And that was definitely the turning point of like, okay, now I I know that I love this sport, and I gotta back myself and have a go in it. So that was kind of that turning point there. We got home and went on a crazy playoff run. Went to the national championships, ended up winning it all that year against Belmont Shore. Crazy way to finish off the year, and I think we only graduated like 5 or 6 guys from the class before us. So the next year coming back, it was going to be a lot harder to gain a spot. And me being a guy that wanted to work, I wanted to get some more matches in the summertime. So I wanted to go back to that NAI Sevens tournament. It was super developmental for me the year before, and had a great experience. So wanted to go back there. This time, I hit up the Rhinos, and the Rhinos and the Rugby Gods worked together, and they brought out Coach Wasali Sarevi for our team that weekend. And I can't say that I've been locked in for anything more or for longer amount of time in my life, and I don't think I ever will. Yeah, being coached by the God of Rugby Sevens doesn't come around very often. That kind of opportunity, so you got to take everything you can out of that experience, and I definitely did. Was asking them questions, making sure that was having conversation with coach when we were having downtime in between matches and stuff like that. Like, hey, coach, what did you do to make sure you're ready to go for that second game, right? He told me to stop walking around and drink water, right? So yeah, Coach Wasali Sarevi, big shout out to him. Has definitely been another one of my big inspirations in this game, and really glad to see him still helping out the game, and pushing for the growth of it. Obviously, his son just got his debut with Japan at the Hong Kong Seven, so that was massive. And yeah, it's just been great to see him, working in the game, and being able to connect with him after that, right? So I was able to get an interview with him actually at the PR Sevens a few years ago, and that was an amazing opportunity. So shout out to Coach Wasali Sarevi, my guy for sure. Next, so yeah, we had a good weekend there with Coach Wasale, and the one thing I took away from him outside of kind of just like the rugby skills, right? Like catch pass for sure. Like he taught me when you're standing at the pivot position, put your hands together, right? Why are your hands so far apart? Put your hands together, catch the ball, and swing it. So that was something I took away from him on the rugby side. But outside of that, some of the big things that he was talking about were failure is not failure and success is not final, right? So what do those two things mean? So failure isn't failure, right? It means failure is a lesson, right? You got to take failure as some kind of learning lesson, some kind of learning opportunity, before you look at it as a complete failure, right? And I think that's very important to me because failure happens a lot in life and in rugby, and yeah, you got to take everything as a lesson to make sure you keep growing, keep building, and then yeah, don't let anything set you back because usually you probably don't have control over what just happened, and you just got to keep working. That's the only answer. So that's that for the failure is not failure, and success is not final. An even more important one, and I mean, success is not final. What does that even mean, right? Like, success is not final. Cool. That means when you find success, right? When you find those winning moments, you keep building on those, right? You don't just get complacent and say, oh, well, I'm ranked whatever, number 24 in the nation, like we are right now. Time to get complacent and, oh, this feels really good. Nah. Job's not finished. Um, Job's not finished. And so that's kind of what the success is not final thing means. And Coach Osale really ingrained that into us that weekend. And it's something I think about quite a bit in my training and kind of just my mindset in the game, I guess. Massive thing that I think about. So big shout out to Coach Osale and for the piece of advice there. This game isn't going to last forever. And that was one of the things that he talked about was like, man, if I could be playing rugby with you guys today on this pitch, I would be. My body doesn't allow for me to do it anymore. And there's nothing that I would want more than to play another game of rugby is what he had to say. So, yeah, I've remembered that. And, every time I see him, I remind him like, hey, man, you were a massive inspiration to me, coach. Like, thank you. And yeah, so massive there. After that, going into my senior year of rugby, I was ready, but still lacking some of those skills, especially in 15. Just hadn't really hit that edge yet of the development standpoint, I guess. So after that, going into senior season, kept my head down, kept working. Again, knew that we had a big season ahead of us, senior year, finishing out the high school rugby journey. And so we took third at the national tournament when we went back, and that was right after we got off of our second tour to England and Wales. Amazing experience there, but if you know, you know. Not going to talk too much about that experience, but definitely something that made me want to work harder. That tour and going to nationals that year too. Got to the third place game and had to finish it off strong with the boys there. So definitely a great way to finish it. but yeah, something that definitely made me work harder and has still made me work harder is that weekend and that kind of experience there. So, after we won that or took the third place and graduated, I committed to Utah a couple months. I already committed to Utah a couple months before that. Played a bit of men's sevens with the Sacramento Men's Club. Shout out the boys back home. And one day, out of the random, I think it's a week before the Premier Rugby Sevens kicked off on the West Coast, and I was planning on heading down there because my buddy Hanu Koi was playing for the Loonies that weekend. So I was already headed down there to go watch him and just make sure that I was going to see this professional rugby because there was an opportunity to go watch it closer to my home, right? So that was kind of the thing. And I got a text from this Barstool Rugby account, this random account that had, I think, a couple hundred followers, maybe 1,000 followers already. And they were like, "Hey, man, wanted to see if you wanted to go to the PR7s and make some media, maybe even get some interviews with some players." And I didn't want to go. I'll tell you what. I was kind of, like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for that or if I can do that. Because I had never done any interviews before. I had never done any kind of media, nothing like that. Had definitely done some speaking, some like public speaking, but definitely never had spoke to any kind of players like that. So that was a crazy opportunity, and my dad looked at that and was like, "Man, this looks super cool. You got to get down there and go ahead and do it." And so that's kind of how the whole Barstool Rugby thing started. Yeah, I mean, we went and got down there, interviewed a few players. Corey Jones was my very first interview that weekend, and it was quite amazing. After that, got my guy Kahanu Koi, and two interviews that day with current Seawolves player Brock Gallagher, another one of my mentors in this game for sure. And then after that, got Coach Vasali Sarevi post final once they won it with the Loggerheads. So that was a big one as well. Great weekend there, and just kind of kicking off the journey. Yeah, definitely don't forget about that day and won't for a long time, I don't think. So once I moved up to Utah that fall, right, going into college, I went to the USA versus State Toulouse match down in Sandy, Utah. And that's the day that I met Nate Augsburger, Christian Dyer, and then I even interviewed Don Bisag and Golf Rugby Report. So that was a big weekend for connections, networking and just talking to these guys. It's not about getting them on the video and getting the views from the video. It's more of connecting with them, right? And then getting some of those answers to some of those questions. Like talking to Don Bisag about, hey, what is your kind of outlook on the transition from college to the national stage, right? What does that kind of look like? And he was like, man, it's a hell of a switch. Told me all about it, and I'm sure we'll repost that interview at some point. But yeah, amazing opportunity there. Following that, got some traction on the videos, and after that, I wanted to go to the LA Sevens, right, for spring break. So was able to get interviews, with Alona Marr that weekend, Perry Baker, Maddie Levi, Madison Hughes, Sam Dixon from the All Blacks, and even met some other cool dudes like my guy James McConey. So shout out James, it's definitely been another big help for me. But yeah, great weekend there at LA Sevens, and headed back down there in a couple weeks here, but was ingrained in the rugby that weekend, and just was able to really like find some flow, get a lot of interviews and a lot of content in, and I think that was the weekend where I really saw the big opportunity for this to go somewhere. So that was huge. And from there, the Seawolves reached out to me and wanted me to interview some of their guys. So gave me that opportunity. Interviewed their men of the match for each week. I think about good 10 weeks of the season. After that, ended up going down to the MLR Championship in San Diego to support them. Was able to meet my guy QSM with Jeff that weekend. Unfortunately, Seattle fell, but shout out to Seattle Seawolves and their organization. Gave me a massive opportunity last year to kind of get my foot in the door with the MLR, and yeah, man, it's definitely proved to be an opportunity generator. So much appreciated there, and definitely shout out to the Seawolves. Hopefully, those boys can turn it around this season, and we'll see them in the playoffs. Definitely hoping for something like that. So great weekend there. And after I got the chance to go to the All Blacks match, so a couple weeks later, I was down back in San Diego. They played Fiji, and that's where I chatted with both Scott Barrett and Coach Razor. So massive weekend there. And at the end of August, I was actually able to interview one of my best friends, Jake Kinnebeck. He graduated from the University of Utah last year, was our captain, played with him here. And then he got drafted with the 22nd pick overall in the MLR draft, the Chicago Hounds. So he's playing with those boys now. And that was the last time that I made any content. So since I believe the end of August, beginning of September, haven't really made any videos, and I've been really missing it. Wanting to get back into it, and today's the day, right? So A few months after that, obviously Barstool Rugby got shut down, and kind of decided to take a little break, focus on the rugby club, my studies, all that kind of stuff, and just wanted to have some time to review my work, kind of get to planning a little bit, and kind of just take a step back. So that was kind of a great time for me to look at it all and be like, wow, there's an opportunity for me to actually put out a show, get some production going and all that kind of stuff. So that's where we're at now. And I don't think there's a better time to start a show than today, right? So that's kind of what we're doing here. And so the mission with that is to help grow the game, right? America needs to put more eyes in this game of rugby, and we're here to make that happen. That's our job, right? Like you guys see the bridging the gap thing, and I always talk about that, but bridging the gap is talking about bridging the gap from rugby in the U.S., right? What we're doing here to rugby around the world, and what they're doing around the world, right? Rugby in the U.S. is getting there, and we're making great steps, but we just need a little bit more attention to the game, and it's our job to help do that, right? It's not USA Rugby's CEO's job to get us to the matches, right? It's his job to market the matches for sure. It's his job to put a schedule out and give us 6 home games, I believe, this year, 6 home matches between the men's and the women's. That's his job, right? Our job then is to bring new faces to the match and get butts and seats and eyes on the game. And so that's our job as rugby players, as rugby fans, and that's what I'm here to help do. So massive thing there. And for me, these videos alone, right, should probably reach at least 10 people who have never even seen rugby being played before, right? Like never at all. I think that's a massive thing, right? To get more eyes in the game, get new people ingrained in the game. And yeah, hopefully some of my family members and friends who don't play will see this video and be like, wow, maybe I should go watch a match that weekend. And I hope they hit me up for that ESPN Plus password. So we'll see about that. But yeah, that's kind of the goal with this thing. And really, when I was younger, I was able to see, I wanted to be a professional baseball player because I saw Mike Trout on the TV talking about his swing on the MLB Network, right? Like that was, a role model that I looked up to, and somebody that I saw as like wow, I wanted to be like that guy, right? And so now I interview players, I ask them questions about how they made it, and what their perspective is in the game, because I hope that kind of impacts some kids, and some guys are able to see that in high school and be like, wow, like I can do this, and this is an actual opportunity, and I want to be like that guy when I grow up. So it's a massive thing there. Obviously, not being like that guy, like me, being like that guy, like the professional rugby player. So that's that. And yeah, that's kind of the goal with this thing. And so that's been my journey in this game, and kind of how I started to get into making videos. And with that, I give you the Have a Go Talk Show. Perfect. So yeah, thanks a lot for tuning in today. That'll be the first segment for us. Like, comment, subscribe, follow, share, and tag the Have a Go Talk Show on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Cheers.